Welcome into special Saturday Junior Day edition of On Texas Football. I'm Gerry Hamilton, joined by CJ Vogel as always. CJ, the players are inside Newhouse behind us, Moncrief Newhouse. They're going through the Junior Day festivities. We'll call them Junior Day, having lunch with the staff. A lot of top prospects did show up today. Yep. CJ, let's start with one of the guys that wasn't on all the list early on was Jermaine Bishop from Willis. We saw Jermaine Bishop come in, the four-star, we call him plus, corner, receiver, whatever he is. Jalen Lott, another top athlete here. But, CJ, you saw some of those offensive linemen. It's a great group of offensive linemen that showed up today.
Yes, certainly. It's hard to miss Toa Katoa at any time. And, of course,
and his family. They're all big.
A lot of family. And normally when you see a lot of family on a visit like this, Gerry, it typically ends up being a positive note more than anything. Nick Robertson, another big body. Yes. I look at both of them saying, wow, I'd like to have both as guards on my team, if I was building a football roster. But also Max Wright, who very much a developmental body in comparison, but someone that Texas very much likes is indeed. Zayden Crimpin made the trip as well. Obviously, no John Turntine this week.
Felix Ojo here as well.
Felix Ojo arrived. One of the later buses to arrive out here. But
a basketball player at Lake Ridge, had a basketball game last night. So he's on that Lake Ridge. Felix Ojo's on that Lake Ridge
really
basketball
talented
team.
Offensive line.
Yeah. But Felix Ojo's on that Lake Ridge basketball team that's going to be one of the favorites to win the 6A state title this year. So he had a hoops game last night, so a little later getting in. Then at linebacker, Tank King, Kosi Paul out of the Houston area, Kosi Paul out of Maid Creek, Tank King, I guess, Golden Triangle out of Port Arthur Memorial. Those are two of the top linebackers here as well. At defensive line, made the drive down from the Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee area, Yahya Gyad. I mean, the big 6'5", 260-pound defensive lineman is in town with his brother. They made the drive down for the second time. He drove down for a game this year. I believe it was Mississippi State. And so he is back in town today, as is Jamion Winfield, the big-time defensive lineman out of Richardson. So, CJ, the list of guys, the secondary group is really all the safeties. All the top safeties are here.
All the top safeties are here. It's funny. Look, you mentioned Jermaine Bishop, and you see him in person. I'm not sure where Jermaine Bishop's best position will be. But I think if you look at his tape, safety's certainly in play for him. Gerry, he's not a big kid at all. And this is, my third time seeing him in person. I think each time I sit there and go, wow, that's one of the best athletes in the state. And his frame still has so much room to grow. But moving back a little bit, back to that front seven, DeKeevy's back, another guy that made it in from Carthage, linebacker, a really talented prospect as well. And then Jamarian Carlton out of Temple. Basketball game last night as well. Yeah, not quite 27-2 up in Temple. But
when he walks in, he's got these long raptor arms, he looks like a crab with those long arms.
You don't want to be in his paint,
right,
Gerry? No, that's exactly it. But those were two guys that stood out to me as well. And of course, Jalen Lott making it in with his family, his father James, obviously in the Hall of Honor here at Texas as well.
And his mom played basketball for Jody Conrad at Texas. We actually talked about the women's basketball game against Tennessee when they got here. Then at running back, Javian Osborne here, KJ Edwards is here, Isaiah Lee from Lancaster's here. We saw him. We believe Christian Rhodes is here, but we haven't seen him yet. But the list of guys is, I would say, 60, 70 kids walked in. In about an hour time period.
I would say so as well. Again, last year probably sitting double the number.
Yeah.
Last year also, Texas didn't have to go until middle of January for their football season. So on top of that, Diabell and his family arrived earlier today. They've been golf carted around campus quite a bit. So getting the royal treatment, obviously a member of the 2026 Texas class, you kind of get those golf carts. Right. You don't got to ride the bus from point A to point B.
Another out-of-state guy I wanted to mention that made a flight in with his dad's Blake Stewart, the safety from Woodward Academy in Atlanta. It's a short choice. Kenny Baker been recruiting him. Blake Stewart is here from Woodward Academy, one of the more talented private schools in that greater Atlanta area. He had told us early in the week he would be here, and he is, in fact, here. And then, CJ looked at – so we've talked about Diabell, the running backs. Obviously, Javian Osborne, KJ Edwards. We'll see if an Isaiah Lee or a Christian Rhodes, anything happens with those guys today. Wide receiver, James Scott out of Oak Ridge. He walked in. We talked about him on Coffee and Football Friday. We watched film of him. He is all a 6'4.5", and about – there may be some more guys pulling up right now, by the way. Y'all are getting some good stuff right here. Let's see who this is. CJ might want to. We might want to take a peek here and see who this is. But James Scott, all is 6'4", 6'4.5", about 200 pounds. He is a big kid. The receiver from Oak Ridge has been picking up a lot of offers of late. He is here at wide receiver, as is Trey Moore, who talk about Trey Moore.
Yeah.
One of the offers today, the 27 receiver out of Rice, his mom played basketball at Alabama, but he's one of the most talented sophomores in the country.
Yeah, we'll get into the new offers. Obviously, great segue there, Gerry.
As he talks, I'm going to peek at who's jumping off the spot.
Texas did offer Pflugerville Weiss wide receiver Trey Moore this afternoon. Moore, 6'3", 6'3.5", wide receiver out of Pflugerville. Received the Alabama offer earlier this week. Held an Oregon offer, I believe, all the way back to last September. Really talented, freakish athlete. Again, you mentioned his family, the lineage that goes on with his football athleticism.
Yeah.
Heck of a football player. Will be one of the better wide receivers to come out of the Central Texas area, which has produced some studs over the past decade.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, and so then the 27, a 27 kid, as I continue to peek, I think they're going to pick guys up and take them on a campus tour. Here's what we're doing. A 27 guy that I really like is Amari Vickerson, the defensive lineman out of Cypress Ranch is here as well. And he looks really good physically, 6'3", about 290 pounds. That sophomore tape really pops. A guy that's already got a Texas offer that is here for another visit. So what these guys are going to be doing, let's talk a little bit about what these guys are going to be doing. So them and their families have lunch here. Some guys may go to the A&M Texas basketball game that's starting over at about Moody here in a little while. Some guys will meet with Steve Sarkisian and sit down individually. Them and their families will sit down with Steve Sarkisian. There'll be some guys that get into some position meetings or a film breakdown. Let's say a defensive lineman, Jamion Winfield, will sit in with a Kenny Baker and Kenny Baker they'll watch video together and he'll give him pointers on how he can get better, what he likes about him. Here's a couple of things we'd like to see you do to develop as a player as you continue your development. So there's all sorts of those meetings. There's campus tour as well for the prospects and the parents. And this will wrap up probably around 3:30 this afternoon for the most part, CJ.
Yeah, one other offer that's been extended as well. There's been two today, right? Trey Moore was one of them. The other was Tyler Legacy, 2027 offensive lineman Demarion Johnson, 6'5", 310, big body.
Yeah. Kyle Flood was by that school last Thursday, or 2 days ago, Thursday. The head coach at Tyler Legacy, for those that don't know, is Bo Trahan, former Texas Longhorn, lifetime Longhorn, a special team standout. Obviously, he coached in the collegiate ranks for a long time. His father, Warren Bull Trahan, is one of the legendary high school coaches. But Bo Trahan I believe, is here with Demarion Johnson. And Johnson was offered by the University of Texas. So 2027 offers so far. And just to recap a little bit here, as we got a lot more work to do. Quarterbacks, just going down the list. Diabell, we've seen Diabell. Running back, we've seen Javion Osborne, and we've seen KJ Edwards and Isaiah Lee, the Lancaster running back, who doesn't have an offer yet. At wide receiver, CJ, maybe not as many of the guys on this visit list, like Naeem Burrows had the cancer.
Right.
Caden Finley's actually at Notre Dame
that's
this
where I was
weekend.
going to go as well. Yeah, two notable admissions from the list coming in. Caden Finley obviously being one. John Turntine obviously not on campus either.
Yeah. Jabari Mack from Destrehan, Louisiana is here. He came in with his parents at wide receiver. And then James Scott of Oak Ridge, which last Friday, not yesterday, but last Friday, Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson went by Oak Ridge to look at James Scott in person. So that's a serious recruitment. That's a kid who is on a potential offer watch. We're not saying it's going to happen, but that's a serious look that Texas has given him.
One other wide receiver, Peyton Porter from Melissa,
from Melissa
campus as well. Bigger body, might actually be a guy that transitions into a tight end role as he continues physically developing. But he's made it to campus. I believe that's his second time here. Someone that he's obviously high on Texas. We'll see if Texas reciprocates that today as well.
And then the offensive line, again, that rundown is Felix Ojo's here, Max Wright, both tackles, Ojo, Lake Ridge and Mansfield. Max Wright and Melissa, both DFW guys. Toa Katoa's here, DFW guy. Zayden Crimpin's here, DFW guy. Prince at Prosper. Then Nicholas Robertson at Klein. That's your top 2026 OLs here. There's a few 2027 OLs. Probably there's a number of guys in 2027 here as well. Then on that defensive line, Jamion Winfield did make it in. Great looking kid.
Great looking kid.
Yeah, I was preparing everybody for that one. I mean, he's going to end up being a top 35 level kid in the country, if not a 5-star. God's here as well, Jamian Carlton. So they have a lot of their top targets. A lot of big-time players are here. Then at linebacker, Kosi Okpala, Tank King, obviously here. DeQuaze Beck from Carthage is here. And then again, it's in the secondary, Aaron Bradshaw, the safety from North Crowley, was just offered. Chase Calicut, the safety from North Shore, who was just offered, is here as well. We have not seen Donovan Webb, but we do believe he's here.
Yes.
And then obviously Jalen Lott at corner, Jamarian Vincent.
Let me ask you about the 2 new safety offers from this past week, because both larger frames, right? 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
You saw both of them as they entered the facility, Gerry. What stands out physically about both Bradshaw and Calicut? Is there a difference between the two physically?
I think there is. I think Calicut's got a bigger frame. I mean, I could see Calicut being a 225, 230-pound linebacker. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think he's got a bigger frame than Bradshaw. I think Bradshaw is going to be that 6'2.5", 6'3", 200-pound safety, and Calicut very well could be, but he's already 190.
Okay.
185, 190. And if you talk to North Shore, they just think, we don't know where this frame's going to go. If you talk to coaches at North Shore, they think he could be a really big player and be a close to the line of scrimmage player that could grow into a linebacker long term. And we're not saying it's going to happen. We'll see what happens down the road with that. But again, I think when you talk, let's talk about here, who's a lean to Texas? And that doesn't mean they're committing, but who's a lean to Texas? Max Wright?
Yeah.
Nicholas Robertson?
I believe so.
Those 2 for sure. Toa Katoa, I believe, is a Texas lean. And that doesn't mean all these guys are going to end up at Texas, but where they're at now. Crimpin, quite possibly, potentially. I think the first 3 definitely are. Calicut definitely is a Texas lean. We'll see who Texas pushes for.
Put Jalen Lott in this conversation?
Jalen Lott's a Texas lean for sure. I would say that for sure. Javian Osborne, I think his best coach relationship is to Sharp Choice. Michigan's made a real run there. They're the top 2. He's just at Georgia last weekend. That's one, if you said, tell me right now, you have to, CJ and Gerry, you have to pick a school for him that he's leaning to. I'd say Texas slightly.
And that's going to be really interesting to see and at least hear from him after the visit.
Yeah.
You know, did he talk to Sharp Choice?
Yeah.
Did he hang out with? We'll see after this visit, you know, and about that relationship with Coach Choice. Because to your point, that's a great relationship going in. We'll see how it is whenever he comes back out.
And the best, the most not best dressed, most interesting dressed prospect here today was Kosi Okpala. Kosi, the linebacker from May Creek, who is going to be an A&M or Texas battle, and Texas has been out front for him in a while. He's wearing maroon and white shoes, Nikes today.
He was fitted up. It's cold out here, Gerry.
Hey, he is going to catch he's going to catch some jokes today from the Texas staff. They'll have some fun with that. But Kosi Okpala, a tremendous player, but he's wearing the maroon and white Nikes here today to the Texas Junior Day. So we'll have a lot more on the Texas Junior Day throughout the day. We'll have some CJ, myself, Jeff Al. We'll get some quotes from those guys, video of those guys for you at On Texas Football YouTube later. For CJ, I'm Gerry. This has been your Junior Day check-in update.